Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of Eardrum Solo. This is actually the first podcast. So I posted a 4-minute brief explanation just saying like who I am, what this whole podcast thing is, just a general lowdown of what you're getting into. So I don't think I'm gonna have to get into that very much. But just to say right now, the show is super malleable. This is a first episode. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's just something I've wanted to do for a while. So just, why not? It's probably going to improve. I'm open to suggestions. I'll take anything. I'd just like to give a big shout out to Noah Wu, my close friend, for doing all the artwork, making that sexy ass logo. And I just want to say thank you for listening. That's really cool that you pulled through. It's awesome. I appreciate the support. So I'm sitting here with a person some of you may know, some of you may not. His name is Christopher Tardy. Now, Chris here has been my best friend since we were maybe like... Okay, so I knew you when we were like 8 or 9, but we became quite close end of elementary school into high school, and we've remained really, really close friends since. We kind of developed a mutual passion for music, and we've been egging each other on to make music and listen to albums and stuff, and he's also a producer and a musician himself. He even composed the theme song that you just heard. So, Chris Tardy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man.
Chris, you and I were in a band.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
No.
No. Okay, cool. Very, very cool. So Chris and I were in a band, semi-band called Vibrant Reset for a number of years. Chris, do you want to just explain what that is?
Yeah, for sure. Look, everyone, or if you weren't in a band in high school, you know some kids in your grade that were in high school, and there were just a bunch of boys who thought the Arctic Monkeys and the Strokes were like the best band in the world and wanted to be like them in every way.
Fair enough.
You probably saw them play at a talent show, or you probably saw them release a song on SoundCloud. Anyway, that was us. That was us in high school. And then after that, it became very evident that just because you're great friends with some people, that you're not necessarily good in a band together. And so Vibrant Reset has become more of like a collective of just humans that just exist and walk the earth now. Every once in a while we do creative things. Camille's been doing amazing things on his own. Evan, you have a very long history of short films that you create and I produce. So I think Vibrant Reset still ties us all together to this day, even if we're no longer playing at your local talent show.
That's true. It's it's a collective. I think you mentioned before we started recording that we're kind of an odd future type. I'm not saying we're as good
wishful
as odd future,
thinking.
Wishful thinking, but it's in that like it's just a bunch of creative people that go under like a kind of pseudonym almost, I guess. Chris and I also played in a couple bands together. One of them is called Made Men, which we are no longer part of, but we think of quite fondly. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But I guess for our first actual topic of discussion, considering this is a music commentary podcast, there's a particular person who's been in the news quite a bit by the name of Kanye West. And yes, I'm aware that we are two white guys that are about to go on a rant about how much we love and appreciate Kanye West, but hear us out. So Kanye was supposed to drop an album pretty recently, actually like 2 days ago. What do you generally think about his whole notion of teasing an album and that not coming out? Do you think that he's kind of discredited any kind of album announcements that he can possibly make in the future?
Well, that's a great question, man. Kanye fans are kind of like Sonic fans. We've been through a lot, and everything that we've had to go through has kind of fucked us up. So as Kanye being one of my favorite artists, if not my favorite artist, period, there is a lot that I've had to endure over the years, and I'm not trying to put myself in like a victim complex. I'm saying this is not the first time, even close, that he's failed to deliver on an album release or any other announcement that he's made to the public. Right. This is probably his third or fourth major time that he's missed a deadline. Fans of Kanye are very familiar probably with Good Ass Job that never came out, the Chance and Kanye collab. He's basically announced a collaboration with every major artist on the planet that has never shown up. Really, the list goes on. He reportedly had a full album with Paul McCartney, with Chance the Rapper, with Drake. Thank God the Kid Cudi collab came out because he was really about to become a meme of himself. I mean, not that he isn't already a meme. So, look, Donda does not surprise me. I'm not mad. How can I be mad at the guy, really? He's given us so much. But, yeah. You know,
it's weird to hear any musical artist be like, we got a thing coming out and just like post a track list, and pretty much the universal response is no, it's not. I can't think of another time, at least in my experience, that I've heard something like that, where someone will be like, yo, guys, this Friday, and the universal response will be like, no.
Or the universal response is like, yeah, bet.
Yeah, exactly. What's it like being a Kanye fan now? I mean, he's announced that he's going to be running for president, and as somebody who's just a casual, or a little bit more than casual, if you're a fan of a music artist that is announcing such big things, what is that kind of putting you through, you know? Are you going to remain a fan of this person and their art, or is it going to be mostly like you appreciate their music but you're distancing yourself from the person? Or just generally, what's it like?
Well, as for distancing from the person, you can't really get more distance than being a fan of somebody. I don't know this guy, never met him in person. I've seen a couple interviews and I see his face plastered all over the media. That does not mean you know somebody. And so I really don't think that I carry around like a personal shame for being a fan of somebody whose work that I don't even know. That said, I think you know me. I don't really care too much about things that are outside of my control. I can't really tell this guy to do anything. And I'm excited that he seems to be following his dreams. I still think he's an inspirational person, even if that inspiration is a little bit misguided. I'm okay with that. To answer your question, no, I'm fine with it, really.
Cool.
I really like his music, and it just resonates with me in a certain way that I don't see in a lot of other artists, and that's totally fine. Sometimes I tell people that Kanye is my favorite artist, and they kind of ask me like, oh, well, what do you think of all the things that's been happening? And I tell you exactly the thing that I'm saying right now. I don't really get that invested in it. It's not a huge concern to me. He's not really hurting anybody. I mean, I think some fans of some artists have had to deal with a lot worse, like either being Me Too'd, or for example, any fans of R. Kelly, like true fans of R. Kelly, you know, they're still out there in the world somewhere. So
True, they bailed him out of jail. Never forget.
I honestly know very little about him. Just goes to show you, when you're a fan, you are very distanced from these people. You really don't know what's going on in their day-to-day lives. So I don't even know if there's a single reliable source in the media. Look, Kanye has done a lot in terms of the music industry, in terms of fashion, what visionaries can do, just how inspiring a person can be. I really think that in terms of his entire body of work, there are things that you can love in it and there are things you can hate in it. And I just think I've been impacted very positively. So I just want the best for this person that has clearly given me this thing, you know?
Cool.
There are a lot of, like, I don't know, I can even think of the bus rides that I've just filled up with listening to his albums. Because, by the way, most of them are over an hour long, and my commute is really long. So, you know, he made my life better.
It's a soundtrack, yeah.
Exactly, and I can't deny that he made my life better. And so I really do want the best for this person, even if I don't know them. So, you know, yeah, it's unfortunate to see him talk about these things in the news, but it doesn't mean that I wish ill things on him. Fair enough. Only wish that he continues to make great music, or at the bare minimum leads a happy life.
Yeah, I kind of just hope he gets some help. I don't know. I obviously can't self-diagnose him or anything, but I think his family really wants the best for him too, and they're saying he wants some help. But yeah, we'll see.
I have no idea.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with Kanye West.
Cool. Moving on. What do you want to talk about?
That was such a abrupt segue. Yeah,
no worries.
It's okay. I said Subway instead of Segway. We're not sponsored by Subway.
We're sponsored by Flamingos.
And by paraphernalia. We had a conversation recently, and I wanted to reiterate and maybe get more in depth. We were driving, and I think you mentioned that you believed that art and creation of art is an inherently selfless act. And I was wondering if we could just dive into that a little bit. You like my matchboxes?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, it's just a part of my like motor personality that I like holding things and messing with them as I talk.
It's okay.
But I'll try to.
I'm scared for when you have like a newborn baby and you're just like, yeah. So as I was saying, okay, I'll stop making fun of you.
I actually have to admit, I'm terrified about that like first 6 months of having an infant, where literally like you, like one slip up and that kid's gone from like Harvard to like. I don't even want to know what's at the bottom.
I don't think it's that bad, but I know what you mean for sure. Like. I am a very clumsy person.
Right.
Just having a life in my hands, I'm just like, I made this. And then just be knowing myself, I'd be like, I should not be holding this child.
Everyone listening, ask your parents if they ever had like a legitimate child scare when you were very young, or maybe with one of your siblings, the chances are they have a story where they thought they had almost killed you.
Yeah.
I am so convinced of this because my parents don't.
I was dropped pretty early on. I remember it. Yeah. I was also, I think I was born with like a little dent in my skull. Yeah. Apparently it's very normal according to what my parents are saying.
Your dad was gonna sue, right?
Yeah, they like pulled me out of my mom. Not gonna get into detail. Yeah, I got out of my mom and they were just like, holy fuck, he looks like an ashtray. They were like, oh my god, what happened? But it's okay. Yeah, the dent is gone. I like to believe that they molded my head like pottery. And they kind of just like, there, the perfect head.
Yeah, speaking of pottery.
Yeah, I was gonna point it out. Hey, Pottery, if you're listening to this, you should hit me up and come on the podcast. Yeah, big fan.
Yeah, it's honestly his dream. He's not messing around.
Yeah, I would actually cry for like a good while.
About art being inherently a selfless thing. Just there are two reasons that I think that. There's one from personal experience, and one is actually from a Kanye West interview where
segue.
Where he talks about maybe in 2012, it's during the tour or the release of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and he talks about the fallout that he had with the media and his fans after the Taylor Swift incident, and he also talks about a lot of the things that went on in his life. He broke off an engagement, his mother passed away, and there's this amazing passage in it where, first of all, he's really funny. He's like, so what do you do if I say something you don't like? You gonna come to my mama's house? I don't have a mother. You gonna come to my girlfriend's house? I don't have a girlfriend. It's just me. So like, you're gonna have to face the person who's saying these things. You can't just go after the people that are close to me. You can't take anything away, because you've already taken everything. And that was the whole like focal point of the interview, was like, if you say anything, you lose everything. And I think a lot of the things that he says now can be tied back to that, because I think he identified this kind of stupid, this stupid rule, I would say, in the media, where if you say something that's out of line, like, you do get chastised. Think about how easy it is, like, for a broadcaster, for a YouTuber. They say one thing that is not popular and their sponsors pull them like that. Yep. Like, I feel like Disney pulls their sponsorship from one major broadcaster a day. Like,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Like, their Twitter is just like, we have cut ties with Jake Paul. We have cut ties with PewDiePie. We have cut ties with Zach Galifianakis. I don't know. I don't think he did anything. I hope not. Anyway, Zach Galifianakis, if you're listening, which you probably aren't, I'm not accusing you of anything.
Yeah.
Anyway,
this is not an accusation. Yeah. I was going to ask, though, because I think that getting back to how we started this conversation.
Yeah.
So there's a difference I find between being an artist and being a celebrity. Now, often they are intertwined, and for sure. Yeah. But people who are, for instance, struggling artists, people who are like us, we just do art for fun, or because we feel like it has to be done almost. How, in our case, would art be a necessarily selfless act? Because I think you can very much see it as the opposite.
I really hope that making music at a very independent level is a selfless thing, because I cannot count how many times I did the 30-kilometer drives in my car with my drum kit downtown so that I can stay up till midnight just to play a 30-minute set and then have people, pat me on the back, say good gig, and then go back home with a little bit of money in my pocket. It was so difficult. I would bring all my drum stuff in a hockey bag to my business classes and just like come and sit in the back with my rickety ass case just because I had a gig after, and I was very proud of that. And I really hope that in general, people will think that I did that for a selfless reason. I just really wanted to make music and I wanted to make it, but I put so much work in. And, I guess people also were very selfless in coming to support me as well. But sorry, did you want to say something? I could say more about
I was going to say, okay, of course, schlepping, great word. Schlepping equipment is annoying. Of course, as a drummer, you know that better than any other member of the band. Absolutely. I mean, I'm a bass player. I have a bass and occasionally this giant amp, but even so, it's 2 pieces of equipment.
Yeah.
But that being said, you do it. I find in my experience, I don't do it with the purpose of bringing pleasure to an audience of people, you know, like as much as that's great and I love seeing people dancing, I do it because of this feeling that I get when I'm on stage. And it's that feeling I think is not necessarily selfless per se. I think that feeling that you get of ecstasy when you're performing at a good gig, at least. I think that's a kind of not really selfish, but yeah, it's definitely, you do it for yourself. And whatever else happens, it's like, it's just an addition. It's like a nice bonus, cherry on top.
Yeah, that's a good point. But do you are you aware of the spiritual concept of manifestation? They talk about it in Homo Deus.
Vaguely. I'm sure I know some of it, but not all of it.
All right, I'll try and explain it the best I can with the little formal training that I have. But the idea is that the emotions and feelings and thoughts that you have are tied to billions of neurons throughout your consciousness.
Yeah.
And when those neurons act in coherence with one another, they manifest certain emotions like anger or fury or sadness, melancholy, all the emotions, but also can manifest, say, in causing me to snap my fingers or causing my arm to lift. And the idea is that when a lot of people do that together, these general like cultural movements happen. So that's spiritual manifestation. But I think that when it comes to music, so this guy, Emil Amos, that was on the Duncan Trussell Family Hour, I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name, but I really liked what he said about making music because this guy is a producer himself. And he says that the way he decides what music he wants to make, or rather what sounds to use in his arrangements, he looks for sounds that properly capture his suffering. And I really like that because I totally agree. I think that when I make music, I'm trying to confess something very personal. And to deliver that in music is basically a type of physical manifestation, if you believe in that kind of thing. Music is kind of taking this aspect of your personality that you can't really comprehend. Otherwise, I mean, you can go to a therapist, you know, maybe they can kind of understand that layer of you, but music is just another way of receiving those things, the things that are kind of outside of the realm of explanation. And I think that to put that out into the world is, I think it's, first of all, very humble, and it's something that is very personal to you usually. I don't think it's really possible to make music that isn't personal. Even if you add like super glossy production, even if you have a bunch of feature art, even if you're DJ Khaled.
Even if you do it as like parody, for instance. I mean, the act of parodying and what the choices you make are in part, it really adds to, it's a part of your personality. Honestly, like what you think will be funny is part of your personality. So the music you're making, even though it's a joke, for instance, like you said, I think it's very hard to make impersonal music.
Yes. So the music is about the self, but that doesn't mean it's selfish. I think that to put that out into the world for other people to consume, other people grow from that. And I think the reason that we like a lot of the artists that you and I like is because we have things that we're always trying to figure out about ourselves. We're still pretty young. And when we hear a song that describes a feeling that we feel or just aligns us with something that we were looking for, that's when we like the artist.
Right.
And I find that for someone to offer that to the world, just like for anyone that might need this or anyone that might want to grow from this music, here it is. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate pretty much all artists or anyone that decides to pursue something creative and put that out into the world. I appreciate that. And that's why I think it's selfless, because I can just say from my subjective experience that it's been very great for me. It's helped me a lot. So that's kind of just how I feel. And that's why I think it's selfless. So Kanye West, in this interview that I was talking about, what he was talking about was that he experienced after the 2008 VMA, he had people come up to him after and basically say, like, how could you go up there and humiliate someone like that? How can you be so selfish and go up there, take someone's thunder, and basically say that they don't deserve this award? Like, that is something that is inherently selfish, and you're a terrible person. Now, that's obviously a paraphrasing of it. I'm sure he's been told things that are actually very terrible. In any case, the way he thinks about it is that since he told the truth, he believes that Beyonce definitely did deserve that award and that she got snubbed by Taylor Swift, and he felt like he had to say something. So he feels like by telling the truth and putting a target on his back, he was doing something inherently selfless, because someone had to speak the truth. Someone had to let the world know that this wasn't okay. And he was like, well, I guess it's going to be me, and I'm okay with that because I already have nothing to lose, you know? And I mean, clearly he lost a lot more from that. I think
he had something to lose. Yeah.
I think he had a tour
Basically.
with Lady Gaga that got canceled. So that was pretty, he clearly lost a lot more. But anyway, that's how he felt. He felt that he was being selfless because he was right and no one else was willing to be right because of this whole thing where if you say anything, then you lose everything, because if you say something unpopular, then the media and the public will turn on you. And the media and the public are the people that cause artists to have their power. These are public figures. It's not like if you sit on the top, on the top corporate hierarchy of a mining company, like doesn't matter what the hell you say from day to day, the mines are still going to stay open.
Yeah, I guess the mines will stay open. I mean, I was going to bring up something like Papa John's. Papa John got kicked out of his own company for saying like horrible racist things, right? So, when you're a public figure, when you say things that are largely disagreed with, that a lot of people consider to be offensive, I think you definitely have a bigger target on your back. But I think especially nowadays, it doesn't really matter as if you have a position of power and you say or do things that a lot of people in the company think are bad. I think it's a lot harder to get away with, thank God. But I do got to bring it back to what you said about Kanye West, because I'm going to say something that's never been said before.
Lol.
I disagree with Kanye West.
Shit.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, especially with something like an award, like a Grammy or a VMA, it was the VMAs, right? It's entirely subjective, It's like you can, for instance, when Parasite won Best Picture, I'm sure a lot of people were super ecstatic about it, myself included. But a lot of people were mad, saying, "Oh, I thought this movie was better. They're wrong." Well, no, you can't be right or wrong. I mean, when it comes to film, it's like, yeah, I mean, some certain stuff, there's good lighting and there is bad lighting. That's an objective thing. Same thing in music, You could say that production was objectively poor. Like, for instance, the Shag's first album, pretty much everything about that album is horrible. And I don't think that's a subjective thing. I think the way the music was made was bad. But in terms of something like a music video, I'm sure I haven't seen the music videos in question, but I'm sure Taylor Swift's music video was pretty good. I'm sure it was fine. And to go up there and say oh, I'm preaching the truth. Well, yeah, you could preach the truth in a different medium. You could go on an interview and tear her apart, or you can, I don't know how big podcasts were at this point, but you could go on a podcast or something and you could basically be like, yeah, man, I think Beyonce got snubbed for this and that reason. A lot of people think it's a race reason. A lot of people think that Beyonce has just notoriously been snubbed. Yeah, that's acceptable. I think going up there and humiliating a young woman is just wrong. I think that is a bad thing to do. Even though you think you're being selfless, what you're actually doing is being quite selfish. Yeah. At least, yeah, in my humble opinion, for sure.
Sweet. Look, there are a few things I want to say. First of all, I'm not Kanye West, so I can't go and defend this guy like I'm his lawyer. We're definitely not in court. And again, I'm just a fan of his music. I am in no way one of his entourage that is trying to defend him on a podcast. It's very I think very I don't know, superficial of me. I don't know how to use the word superficial very well, but yeah, full disclosure.
Very honest.
Look, the thing about award shows and the thing about music is like you said, it's subjective, but I don't think that people use subjective properly when they're talking about music or when they're talking about public events in general. Because if something is subjective, it doesn't really mean that it's devoid of inherent meaning or inherent quality. Like you said, in terms of production, something could be objectively good production or objectively poor production, but then you go and say that the music video is subjective. And look, I haven't compared the two music videos in question, and so perhaps we're both ill-prepared to talk about this, but I think you could definitely make an objective argument. The thing about awards, though, I think it's really valuable that awards be recognizing a contribution, or that they're giving a voice to someone who has put this art out into the world, and you're basically saying this is valuable and we want to support you to make more of this art. That's kind of, I think, if an award was a talking, breathing, language speaking, I guess, anthropomorphic, animated figure, that the award would go out up to the mic and say, we like this person's shit. We want them to make more shit. We respect their shit, and y'all should respect it too. So anyway, I think that a lot of people were frustrated because Beyonce has been such an inspiring figure in the African American music community and just the community overall. And the contributions that she has made throughout her career up until that point were so astronomically large compared to Taylor Swift that it was disrespectful to her to not honor her with this award. And I think that's what Kanye West felt. And I think of the people that agree with him, I feel like that's the strongest argument. I just think that it's not necessarily the cause of someone who's trying to like ruin the party. I don't think it's because he was insane or needs to be taken to school on how to treat people. I don't think I think that is something that is subjective, something that is devoid of inherent quality of like how you should act in public. The one more thing is like, you know, there are so many podcasts just talking about the world or commentary shows that are like, you know, Chip, what do you think of what Kanye West said last night? Oh man, I don't know. And then everyone laughs. But to go up on air, like right after the award was announced, because that was the moment when everyone was watching. It was basically like, okay, she won the award. Kanye goes up. No, she didn't. She doesn't deserve this award. Very, very effective use of a platform to denounce somebody. I don't know if it was necessarily morally right. You were the liberal arts student. I am not. I don't even know if morality is something that you should really base your decisions on.
That's a question for a different podcast.
Jeez, yeah. Welcome to...
Are morals real? Well, Chet.
Welcome to... I'm trying to think of a name for it right now. But anyway, we'll come up with that later.
It's the morality podcast where they do horrible things just to see if they're moral or not.
Yeah. Anyway, that was the argument for selflessness. To tell the truth when you know that you're going to lose tremendous standing for her telling the truth. Not saying that Kanye West was telling the truth. I'm not saying that he was morally right in doing this, but that is what I think is selfless. To tell the truth when no one else is willing to tell the truth and then taking the hit for it. I think it is very important that there is at least one person that does that and stands up. And you know what? Fuck it. If they're wrong, then they're wrong, but I'm just glad that we live in a society that we can do that.
Yeah. So, Chris, we are on to our last topic of conversation. Everyone, thank you for sticking with us. It has been a bit of a stumble for the first episode, but it's been fun. I like talking to you, buddy. So, my question is, like I briefly brought up earlier, you are a producer, and you've had experience producing other people as well as yourself. And I'd just like to talk about the difference between those two things. Because I think a lot of people who are aspiring music producers kind of think, oh, yeah, I want to do production. But I think there is a great difference, which I hope you could elaborate on.
It's a wild, wild west. Look, my business plan right now is I think that I work the best with myself. And when you don't have any clout to your name, when you don't have any songs that have popped off, you don't have anyone interested in your stuff, you're only going to be working with people at your same level or maybe slightly above, slightly below. You know what I'm saying? I can't have a session with A$AP Rocky. I can't have a session with John Bellion as much as I would like to have that. So in my own right, I need to find a way to get up to a certain level where I can start attracting people that are very talented and I know that they can, bring it home. And the problem with working with people at such a low level like me is that a lot of these people are still figuring things out. And it's very hard as a producer to kind of capture that energy when they're still developing things. I genuinely believe that one of the things that was very particular about the Made Man album is that the production and the performances got better as we went on. And that's not really something you want to see in an album. You don't want it to be like
consistent.
Because also a lot of albums and songs are not recorded in chronological order. It's rearranged a lot, so it's very like up and down in terms of quality.
Right.
So that's what I really feel. I like working for myself because I think right now it's the best thing for me, and I'm just trying to get on the come up, and that's how I'm going to do it.
I just wanted to also potentially talk about how when you're producing for someone else, because a lot of people think about production as in just like the simple act of mixing/mastering, but production is a lot more than that. It is a lot of creative choices. And if you are producing for another artist, I mean, I don't have any production experience, but based on the producers I've talked with, it's very difficult to align yourself with the artist unless you're part of this collective, which is why a lot of artists, such as like we brought up Will Toledo earlier, like why he produces a lot of his stuff, because he said in interviews, yes, I produce for myself because I think the best way to get the ideas in my head onto an audio file is to basically, man the ship. And as somebody who's, I mean, you've produced an album with band that I was in, that our good friend Cheyenne Amiri was also in. But Cheyenne was the primary songwriter, and he was really the front man. And I was just hoping that you could speak about your experience just on a purely artistic level of what producing work that is not your own is like versus producing work that is purely like an expression of yourself.
That's a great question. Thank you. It really depends on how much they want you to be involved, because producers, like you said, some people think that it's just mixing and recording, which sometimes it really is. You know, there's not always a very big difference between a producer, as in someone who literally builds the track, and like, you know, a studio lab assistant, the people that set up your mics and then they feck off to go behind the soundboard, you know? So it really depends on the artist. And so working with Cheyenne, I felt like, okay, this thing is not my own. I need to make sure that whatever this person's vision is, I need to find my way to bolster it as much as possible. It's kind of like working in a startup, where my experience working for a startup this summer has been like, I had a job at the beginning of the summer that seemed rather like concrete, like these are the boundaries of what you're going to be working on. It totally changed. I'm like a cat walking around a house. I see a box. I'm going to sit in that box. It's, you know, you see a space that is perfectly formed for your qualities and you just fill it. And I really feel the same thing about production. You really have to read the other person and see, what does this person need from me? And also, how can I not get in this person's way? And you know what? A lot of the time, you do have a lot of input on how the song gets made. For the most part, a lot of artists, especially at the level that we're working with, like small artists that are just starting out but know they really love it, these people are looking for a lot of input because they're trying to improve. You know, they haven't built this dynasty where now they're like, okay, every album's going to be the same, and like, oh, don't touch that. Like, I know what I'm doing. A lot of people are actually pretty humble at this level, and they want your input. And I really like that because it usually works out well.
Fantastic, man. Well, you answered my question quite well. First of all, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you, Chris, for being here. It means a lot. Though if you would have denied, I would have actually taken it very personally. But yeah, thank you for being here, man. I knew I could count on you to give some insight and have some... I take back everything I just said. Yes, thank you to Chris. Big thank you to anybody that is still listening at this point. Brief reminder, like Chris said, this is probably going to be the worst episode. It is a...
Don't come down on yourself, man. Everyone knows.
I am so sad.
You don't have to say it.
I'm just saying, thank you for sticking around. It means a lot to support something quite weird like this. But I would say stay tuned to all of you for the next episode, which will be premiering next Sunday. Mark it in your calendars, next Sunday, where I will funnel an entire 2-liter bottle of ginger ale into Chris's mouth. Thanks for listening.